Hello and welcome to this lesson about variable expressions. The learning target for this lesson is knowing how to evaluate variable expressions. So one thing I want to get across is like this idea of what do we mean by a variable expression? And so that's why I have that word in quotes. Like, what are we talking about with a variable? Well, loosely speaking, a variable is a symbol that represents a number. And there are two ways that, especially in algebra, variables get used. As they're sort of a stand-in for a number. And so there's definitely a hard line in the sand. And one side of that line is that a variable can be any number. The other side of that line says or believes that a variable can only be one number or a certain set of numbers. And when we're talking about variable expressions, we're in this category right here, where a variable can be any number. It's a stand-in, and then we're going to do some operations with these different numbers. And so a pro tip I have for you as we progress with evaluating variable expressions is to use parentheses. So you really want to make sure that you use those parentheses because that will help you realize what the operations are around the variable. It'll help you realize or take care of any negatives that will be with the numbers you're working with. So really use your parentheses. Now with that being said, let's look at some examples. So here, oh, by the way, the directions you're going to have for something like this could be one of two things. You could either see simplify or you're going to see evaluate the expression. Evaluate. All right, so those are the two directions you'll tend to see for variable expressions. And again, the idea is that when we take a look at the expression x plus 2 here, this x can be whatever number we want it to be. And so what's going to happen is someone like me or your teacher or a book or a test or whatever is going to say, all right, plug this number into the expression and see what you get. And so that's why it's super important that we use parentheses. So in parentheses, 7 plus 2. Especially at the beginning. After a while, you'll pick up on how you don't always need to use the parentheses and you know how it goes, but when the problems get more complicated, the parentheses are definitely your friend. And so now we get that what we're doing with our x is that we're adding 2 to it. So we'll take our 7, we'll add 2, and we get 9. And that's the answer. Let's look at another example. So in this expression, we have 1 minus 4x. And so we're told that x is going to equal negative 2. So we're going to substitute it in, again, with parentheses here. And this time, the parentheses help serve a purpose. Now, what happens when we're evaluating variable expressions is we get an order of operations problem. And so we have to do our multiplication first here. So we'll have 1 minus, and then we're going to look at 4 and 2, and that's going to get us negative 8. And then we'll go 1 minus negative 8, which is the same as saying 1 plus 8, and that gets us 9. So here the parentheses help us with the negatives, the organization, and also the relationship between the numbers. Here we're talking about multiplication. So that has to be done first before we take care of this stuff over here. Let's do another example. This one we have 3/4 x minus 6. And here x is going to be 16. So again, parentheses are our friend. They help us out. We're going to, wherever we see x, we're going to put in 16. So 3/4 and then 16 minus 6. And again, order of operations. So we're dealing with a multiplication problem right here. And then we're going to subtract 6. And so we're going to do a little aside, 3/4 times, and then I'm going to make this 16 over 1, so I can take care of my fraction multiplication. The 4's cancel, or the 4 and the 16 cancel out to get 4 and 1, and that's going to give me 12 over 1, aka 12. And then I do the subtract 6, and we get 6. All right, very good. So again, it's just process. Take your variable. Take your value, for your variable, plug it in, use parentheses. I just really can't stress that enough, especially with more complicated problems, so you don't make any mistakes with negative signs. And then it's an order of operations problem. Next one, and now we're going to kick it up a notch. X squared minus 3. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to do this twice. We're going to let x equal 4, and then we're going to let x equal -2. Actually, let me do that in different colors here. So x equals -2. Perfect. So for x equals 4, getting in parentheses, 4 squared minus 3. The parentheses just really help us with the organization. So here we have 4 times 4, which is 16, minus 3, and there we're going to get 13. Now, with the negative sign, those parentheses are a godsend. They really are necessary for this problem. So we're going to put -2 in parentheses and square that, minus 3. Now that that is squared, or we have it in parentheses and squared, that means that this is -2 times -2, minus 3. And so if we didn't use the parentheses, it might be a little unclear, like what exactly is being squared? Just the 2 or the negative sign, both of them? Well, now we get that, yeah, it is -2 squared in parentheses. And so that's going to be positive 4 minus 3. And so these are the kind of tricks that, or problems, teachers are going to use on a quiz or a test to see if you really get how to evaluate a variable expression. And then some of you might be asking, all right, how hard can this get? How difficult can I make this? So let me do one final example where I make it as difficult as it's probably going to get with variable expressions. So this is as difficult as it can get. We're going to mix in several different variables and just try to make you stay organized with it. And so that's why I just keep on harping on the point, use parentheses for your substitution. It's going to help you out a lot. So let's see here. We have x equals 5 and x equals -3. I want to take my time and put them all in there. So -2 times 5 times -3 plus, again, in parentheses, -3 squared. Now, I have to take care of my multiplication here. And the way you got to do these are just 2 at a time. So -2 times 5 is -10 times -3 plus 3 squared. Now I'll go -10 plus or times -3 for 30. And then over here I'll do my 3 squared, which is going to be 9 because it's -3 in parentheses. So that's, remember what's happening over here is -3 times -3. Exponents are repeated multiplication. You're repeating the -3, not just the 3. All right, back to my green. 30 plus 9, 39, and there we go. So that's variable expressions in a nutshell. Again, some of the core ideas that we have going on here is that a variable can be any, or is a symbol that represents a number. And there's sort of a nice line in math. Sometimes it could be any number you want it to be. Other times it has to be one number or a specific set of numbers. And that's not the case here. We're letting it be whatever number we want. So that's what we're doing with variable expressions. Next, use parentheses. It's just going to help you. After that, it simply becomes an order of operations problem. So there you go.